I do not have a speaker for today, but I think I do for next week. So we put it out and we've had people sign up. Some were like, I don't want to be till April or this or that, which is fine. So if you have somebody that you would like to have reach out to them, or just have us reach out to them and we can send them what it is and how it works and all of that. They can see the past recordings, because some of them who've never done this are a little bit apprehensive to come on board and just do that. So, and Brian, I know that you had asked a couple weeks ago about having the city or St. Vincent's on here to explain what's going on, but keep in mind, even though the litigation has been paused, it's still in legal. So there's things that they can and can't say. So we need to respect that. The city's trying, St. Paul is trying, and the city, they're open 24/7. Shelter is now open at St. Vincent's. It has been for a few days until this weather event is done. They were told, though, if any incident happened, that they would have to shut them down. All of us as neighbors were warned and told, informed, so we didn't think something weird was going on. And I'm going to tell you straight up, there's a couple that refuse to even go into that shelter. And they're out on the corner, and they've had well checks from our police department just about every hour. They've brought that person in particular that we can see from our building blankets. They've brought them food. They refuse to move. They cannot move them. Legally, they can't.
We had Dave Lutkins and Bill Merrick speak at Rotary yesterday, and it was pretty interesting about the challenges they face and how they're trying to control who comes in to St. Vincent and to the building, I should say.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, and Dave mentioned a woman on
Yeah.
the street who
Yep.
won't come in.
Nope, she won't. And she's actually very mean to all of the people, and they do not hang out with her. She's been a part of that group for at least 4 years. We don't know her name, but she's been in that group. We know who she is. But
Yeah.
yeah, she's got some very big issues. But she refuses. She wouldn't even get up. And so they moved her because she had moved all of her stuff to the street level, not on the sidewalk. And so she was at a spot, if somebody was coming, they could have slid into her. So the police literally, she would not get up. They literally had to pick up the blanket and move her to the sidewalk.
The Oregonian had a real
And
nice
she's,
article about legislation regarding civil commitments and the challenges around that,
yeah,
and trying to allow more people to go to the state hospital. There's no room for anyone except for people from jails to go to the
uh,
state hospital. So it really is a limited resource.
yeah,
And the challenge of having enough skilled providers.
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
so, so
No,
she was seemed to me to be be
yeah,
slam dunk for a civil commitment, being
right.
harmful to
So, but
herself.
I don't know that there's any place for her to go.
Right. Yep.
Just them moving her to the sidewalk, she screamed and yelled at them and threw stuff at them.
Yep.
So they are trying, and I believe the two people that the city was going to hire through MCAC to have present whenever they go on calls, that are fully certified counselors and all of that training. I believe that's who was with the police department the whole time that they've been working with this gal, and they've been coming back and doing well checks on her also, and providing her. I mean, they put something underneath her, several layers, then several layers on top, and then did some other things, and then they covered her with tarps so that she could have some type of a protected. But she just flat out refuses. And
Yeah.
if she can tell you no, they have to abide by the no.
Yeah. At least at this point in time.
Yep, at this point right now. So those are some of the challenges that people don't realize. that are happening along with the other, and it breaks your heart, but it also is a situation. They have no legal pathway to do something for her right now. If she was unconscious or any one of those, they could take her immediately and put her in the hospital. But she was not that. So, but they've got everybody else as much. I think there's one tent besides hers that is still on the street that they refuse to move also. But the rest of them have been using the shelter. I know that McCack has increased their shelters and they're giving reports out what they have for openings, I think every day. So either a family unit, single unit, or just the warming shelter aspect, but they have not been at capacity yet. They still have had always an opening. So that option's there. Whether people want to follow the rules or not is up to those people, but the option's there. And by gosh, I would want to follow the rules for at least 24 hours so I could have warm, but they don't. They are fully addicted and they do not know. I just think because of the addiction, they don't have the capacity to know what is the best for them. And they're so addicted, they just can't let go.
I can show you McCack's status here.
So, but I mean, we have a front row view of some of the stuff that's happening. It's disheartening, and we go home frustrated that there's somebody there and we know they're going to be overnight outside. But we also have seen the many attempts. And so we know that our community is not cold-hearted, but they do have to follow some rules and guidelines and all of that. So Phil, you're welcome to go ahead and share. I think you should be able to just share.
Yeah. So this is last night from Kelly Horvath. Can you see that email?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So up here, they extended the surge capacity. Originally, there's 10 units, but they've extended that to more than 10 units. I'm not sure how many. And so at the annex, there's still 1 unit available on the individual side.
Yeah.
And 0 on the family side. I don't know if they are putting just 1 person per unit or if they are doubling up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure on that.
And then at the Hood River shelter, there's 2 beds for men and
Yeah.
1 bed in women for women.
No, we get those every day from Kelly. So,
Yeah.
but they're trying their best. And St. Vincent is trying their best. So there's lots of different things going with there, but all that the city and they can share is just the statements that they've put out that St. Vincent's is going to be doing this, this, and this. So because they are still in a legal litigation with that. So we have to respect that they're trying to come up with some solutions. Yeah. So it's not easy on either side. And it's not easy being the community member and right there on the corner.
Question, wasn't there an issue with liability insurance to allow them to keep the warming shelter open? I just was curious, does anybody know how they figured that out?
I don't know how that happened, and it may be underneath. I have no idea. I really don't.
I mentioned that last week, that insurance is going to become a major driver of decisions, and whether it's what status of St. Vincent's is based on their current insurance policy.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what I had heard, that was kind of the reason they shut down, or one reason was because of the liability issue, is that the insurance, I mean, it wasn't fair. So
Lisa, if you want to change the subject, I've kind of keyed up here the 10 projects the MCED is bringing to the county commissioners for approval.
Okay, we can go ahead with that. I'm just letting somebody know that we are online. So just a second while I type. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again.
Okay.
Phil, the report that you shared just a few minutes ago, was that from yesterday?
Yes,
Okay,
that's the most recent I have.
thank you.
And Yeah, this is it.
Ah, I recognize this. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, so this was discussed at McKed. Dan, how long? That seems like a long time ago. Was that in December or November?
October. It was October.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, it was a long time ago. So these are the 10 ranking projects that McKed is recommending. So first is aviation training, and each one of these projects, Dad, you can jump in here, are looking for different funding, but so McKed and the county are saying, yeah, these are our priorities.
On
So
the one
go
that we're
ahead.
looking at right now, we're getting closer on that 1.4 million. Richard Foster has is working with Washington state legislators on a state appropriation that would meet that. He has submitted to Senator Curtis King and also to Representative Gina Mossberger a legislative request, and that's under review right now. That would close the gap, and we would proceed.
Then I'm glad to see that many of these are in South County, city of Waupun. The spring, if in Maupin, is under the rimrock. As you're coming into Maupin, you make the last curve before you make it into Maupin. Just about 200 feet past that curve, up on the side of the hill, is where the spring is. So that needs repair. Mosier is wanting to build a joint use facility. Interesting what's happening in Mosier. As it's described, the old timers kind of are still there, but new people have moved in. I was at a meeting as Mosier was walking around. It was a tour. We walked around and looked at different projects. Of the 30 people on the walking tour, 25 were recent arrivals in Mosier. So it's bringing new people are moving into Mosier with high expectations, and the Mosier's got to figure out how they can provide these amenities that people are asking for. But this is a pretty basic one to have a new city hall. Pine Grove is one that I've had some connection to. I've been to their water district meetings. And they really liked what Business Oregon has set up with their one-stop meeting to learn about funding options. They were able to go there and at the same meeting get a grant and a loan from Business Oregon and another grant and a loan from USDA Rural Development. They're gonna have to repay those loans. And as they figure out that that's going to raise their water rates in Pine Grove from $35 to $85 a month. And at the meeting, this was the water board and talking to the public, about 25 people. People nodded their heads and said, yeah, that's expensive, but water's essential. And without that, our town's going to dwindle and die. Folks aware where Pine Grove is? It's, head from, you take the road from Maupin, you take the Maupin cutoff, head out across the flats, and is right as you enter the forest, there's Pine Grove. It's right on the edge of the forest. I like this one, the Dufur School-Based Health Center. Dufur keeps adding small pieces to their school. So they pass a $4 million bond, get $4 more million from the state, build up one edge at the corner of the high school, and then go ahead and do it again and again and again. So they keep doing a piecemeal thing. It's a smaller school. They've been able to keep up with their projects. And so it hasn't hit the community as hard in terms of a big jump in financing. Who can, marina dock replacement, can somebody speak to this?
So there's a couple aspects because we took this back with us with the community outreach team also. The dock needs to be replaced. It is not sufficient. If something ever happened, one in an emergency that we needed to become a hub, our dock cannot handle that. The other thing is the usage on the dock has increased greatly, both from locals, but an extreme increased usage from our tourists. So this is a tourist attraction having that available. So they are hoping to look at this. The Oregon State Marine Board is already helping them with an engineering, but it is a safer approach, an easier approach. And then also the replacement of things would be able to handle if there was ever an event, that we would become that hub for transportation here in the gorge on the Columbia River. So they're looking at this from two different angles. So they're actually reaching out to different aspects, one for safety, one for tourism, one for if there was a catastrophic event, what would that happen to the Dalles? And what could we do to provide the transportation need and piece of that on the Columbia River?
What does this renovation look like? Is it just the dock where people launch their boats, or are we also talking about where people are berthing their boats and boathouses?
No, I think this is strictly the dock and the approach. The approach is a very long, steep approach and makes it a little bit more challenging. But there's also, they're looking at having them actually swing in a different direction and come down to the dock itself. And then obviously replacing the actual dock structures down below to accommodate, I believe, to accommodate more boats just tied up for the moment for safety factors when the people park, because it is a longer approach. You're going to have a little bit longer time to go up and park your truck. So there's all different aspects. Andrea could really dive into that for you, but they are looking at this. And one of the things that we, well, the restrooms are also included, but they were looking at their emergency capacity for river rescue. And that's what we took with us back to DC was that approach. But they're trying all angles so that we can make this happen.
Lisa, is there any discussion of adding another finger down there?
I don't know of that discussion because that is an Andrea and insurance discussion. So obviously we all know that when something happens, you don't get the full amount to replace it when you have insurance. So I don't know where that's at and what the plans are.
Okay. So, hey, I'm glad, Dan, that they've got the name right here, the Early Learning Center. And
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want to keep on calling it. There's some sensitivity from a scenic area perspective with the term child care center. Denotes daycare, denotes, okay, there's really no learning going on. You're dropping a kid off and they're playing with blocks all day long. That is not what we're doing with this. It is very much a focus on early childhood education. And there you go.
even this is the early childhood education. That is a teaching program from the community college. So even, that childhood, as in hints at child care, that's not what that's about at all.
Exactly. So two major funding sources coming up very quickly here. One, the state legislature appropriated $50 million last year for child care, early learning center, capital construction, renovation. It's going to be broken into two tranches, $25 million per year. Business Oregon is responsible for administering it. We had a meeting last week with the point person on that one. She comes from a child care background, which is very appropriate. We'll be asking for somewhere between $5 and $7 million from that source. So that's from a pool of 25 million available this year. The other big source would be a congressional appropriation somewhere in the same range, all depending upon, do we go into a continuing resolution, what happens, and the all of the politics in DC. So I'll be taking this one back with the outreach team in March. Those are two sources. There are going to be many other. We have a competitive request into the Environmental Protection Agency for $500,000 to remove all of the asbestos from Chenoweth Middle School. Of course, that's the structure we're talking about. That's a national competition. There's no local match required. We're hopeful on that one. We'll find out sometime this spring. Energy Trust of Oregon is a potential source of funding. And frankly, local partners. It will be good at some point to have some sort of a local commitment as we go about some of the other grants that I'm talking about. Ford Family Foundation is interested in this one. The college has contracted with two people, one for fundraising and one for project design. We're going to be, those are Jill Burnett is the executive director of the Gorge Community Foundation. Eric Wilson is an architect. So they have those two responsibilities. And we are closing the architectural and engineering competitive phase here next week, I believe, to select an architect to go through and really go into a detailed view of what it's going to take to turn a former middle school into a early learning center. Met with Friends of the Gorge last week, Kevin Gorman, executive director, and Rudy Salacorzi is the conservation director with Friends of the Gorge, and they are very supportive. They gave us some guidance, said we need to demonstrate that the building has been in continuing use. And so I spoke with former Superintendent Armstrong on that one, and she documented for us the continuing use, particularly athletics. That building has never been abandoned. It has always been used to one extent or another. So a lot of things coming into play there, but stay tuned. 200 capacity public facility, at least 200 capacity, and serving many different purposes. Also potentially as a community resiliency center, but we need to be careful to focus on that early learning center. We do not want to get into a change of use from a scenic area perspective.
With regard to the scenic area, something I was having conversations with Kelly Housley Glover, our planning director, and a lot of when we think of people wanting to put housing in the scenic area, we think of high-end people, putting in a beautiful house in the scenic area. And that's not what the Dalles is thinking about. The areas where we want to put in more housing is for low income and middle income housing. And from a scenic area point of view, I'm speaking politics here, but not bipartisan politics, not partisan. It's, the scenic area, supporting people with low income housing is something that the public is supporting. Likewise, early childhood education, that use on the edge or inside the scenic area is something that the general public supports. So I'm thinking in terms of, I'm speaking of, I really should be speaking of Friends of the Gorge. That's where their political base, their support base, would also be supportive of low income and middle income housing. So keep that in mind as we're changing. When people want to build my house there, from the county point, the city point, it's not the high-end housing. I'll go on here. Where'd I go? Get the right one.
You're there.
I'm right back to the screen.
You're not sharing. Let's just put it that way.
I just got to pick the right one again here.
Okay.
Where did it go? There we go.
I can't tell you. I don't know.
Yep, there it goes. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
This 15-mile managed underground water storage is one that I like because it's technical and it's just so this is upstream from Dufur. That's 15 Mile Creek running through Dufur, and the low stream flows in the summertime and the high temperatures are a danger to fish in the river, including salmon. So what they're doing upstream is, the plan is to make a well, but the well is going to drill down into the aquifer underneath the valley and pump water into that aquifer, recharge the aquifer. But to do that, you would think, okay, great. When they plan to take water right from 15 Mile Creek during the high flow season, And first I thought, well, great, you can just go hang on, pump it out of the stream, pump it into the ground. But they're being thoughtful about it, and the water that you put in the ground better be good water, because it's going to be out of reach for 50 years. You don't want to put something in the water underground that's going to contaminate the water source. So their first project is to manage is to build a filtration trench. It doesn't mention this here. Basically, it looks like a kind of like a swimming pool filled with sand, and it's a lined big swimming pool filled with sand, and they tested it last year to see if it worked, and it didn't work well enough. The water that was coming out, having been filtered, wasn't clean enough to meet the standards that we would want to put water down into an aquifer. So they're doing some, this is engineering. You build it, try it. If it doesn't work, figure out what went wrong and try it again. So they're still into the process of building that. If you drive up there, go up the Dufur Valley, stay to the left when you get to the curve. I can't remember the creek. Continue on that road, and there's a forest of ponderosa pines that have been planted by the landowner. And this is the land where the facility is located. I can't remember his name, but they're calling it, oh my gosh, they're naming that the forest after him. It's an amazing 50 acres of ponderosa pines. Number 9, another wastewater facility, this one in Maupin. Maupin has some land that is going to be developed. As you're coming into Maupin, the hill on the right, there's a developer that's going to be building units on that hillside. But once again, they need to increase their sewage capacity to be able to handle that and others. The pipes downtown leading to their sewage treatment site are too small to accommodate any more growth. Last one, this is another issue I enjoy. I've been working with people in Antelope. They are, there's Brandy McKenna is a former finance officer for Jefferson County. So she comes with a lot of business acumen. She and her husband have bought some land in Antelope. You can buy land cheap in Antelope, and they're restarting an RV park, and they're going to be getting some of the old shelters from the Rajneeshis, putting up those, and restarting the cafe. So Antelope has seen a renaissance, and I'm excited about it because they're pitching this for dark skies, stargazing astronomy. This one is to complete some renovation on the Antelope Community Center. Antelope's a pretty small town, but they have a large school. And the way to think about why this is important is this is the only gathering place within a radius of 40 miles. I went to their autumn harvest dinner, and there were 300 people at the autumn harvest dinner. About a third of them from Wasco County, a third of them from Wheeler County, and a third of them from Jefferson County, because Antelope is right down there on that corner. And so it's a building that is important. As a commissioner, I like to see Antelope remain a city entity, an incorporated city, because it's good to have some civic structures there that we can call on, like, okay, here is a local authority. Otherwise, they're just a bunch of neighbors. So they've got, they're working to renovate it, patch it up. This job is mostly to secure money for stucco, to patch the stucco, so then they can go back and paint over that. but there's some good things happening in Antelope. They also got a grant to, or it was required, but they got money to improve their water system. And to do that, they needed to upgrade everybody's water meters to have the automatic collection, data collection. And from that automatic data collection, they noticed that several people's water meter was running 24 hours a day, which means they had a leak. And so then they just went to those houses that say, hey, you've got a leak, and you patch the leak. And then a week later, they noticed that they had a lot more water in their water tank. So it's as a commissioner, it's really fun to be working with small communities where the issues are people whose names you know and see on the street, and problems get solved. It's government, but it's government at the level of community. It's really neat. What's not on that list is the housing projects, the Chenoweth housing project. I think that's flowing through by its own strength. It actually, at that meeting, it got switched for this Antelope project, but that's has plenty of support already.
Thank you, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have anything they want to contribute or add?
I'd like to, Phil, if you have somebody that can't afford, if it's their responsibility, not cities, on the water down, you were saying down south, there was, people were finding out they had water running. We potentially could help them with our repair program. Keep in mind, we're short staff right now, and it's slow. It's not going to be a week out, but you might send these worst cases to us, and we can maybe get them a deferred payment loan, 0 interest, to get those fixed. That's a allowable use.
Great. I will pass that on to a couple of districts down there.
Okay.
Bill, just a note of appreciation to you for all the work you put in traveling the county, keeping track of these things. That's not easy. There's a lot of travel involved. There's a lot of commitment, and man, pat on the back, sir. That's.
Oh, thank you. I'm getting a new car.
I bet you are.
I'm getting a Honda Prologue. It hasn't been produced yet. It's all electric, and I figure I have just enough range to get down to Antelope and back, and that'll be fun.
Cool.
Thank you, though. Thank you. I enjoy it. It hits me. As you know, I was in Venezuela for 10 years before this, and this kind of working with small rural communities is reminiscent of my time in Venezuela.
Well, if you
Okay.
want a fast update on the airport, we have a team from Business Oregon, an industrial siting team that's going to be touring Port of the Dalles and Columbia Gorge Regional Airport next week. I think that's on the 23rd. And the big news there is that thanks largely to the efforts of the former regional development officer, Michael Held, and he's still in Business Oregon. He's in a different position now. The Business Oregon is recognizing Columbia Gorge Regional Airport for the Oregon Prospector siting process. So when a company, and of course the one that immediately comes to mind is Google, was looking for a place to locate way back in 2005, they were assigned a code number, Project 02. That type of stuff still goes on, and Oregon Prospector will send out announcements, and it's Project Ponderosa Pine, whatever it has a code name, and is looking for 50 acres, looking for 500 acres, 5,000 acres. It's all over the place. Now we can put Columbia Gorge Regional Airport and the industrial park over there literally on that map. And because of the state boundary issue, that's always been a challenge. Now it isn't. So this will be an opportunity for Business Oregon to visit the airport in the state of Washington, jointly owned with, of course, between City of the Dalles and Klickitat County, and maybe get some additional industrial recruitment over there. So that's it's probably the latest big thing going on. Many other things going on, of course.
And of course there's snow. Yeah. And ice. So yes,
Well,
it's
yeah.
still snowing out there. It's very snowy out there right now. It's white. So yeah. So
It
if
is-
you didn't get a message, the banquet has been postponed. That was supposed to be tonight. No way could it happen. Not with all of this. We're not supposed to even see 30 degrees today. So there's no way that that ice underneath the snow would have melted in time for us to even navigate up to the Readiness Center. So we'll be postponing. We sent out emails to everybody who had signed up to go. We did a regular e-blast. We did social media. We did press releases. So hopefully nobody is on their way up there tonight. So yeah, you might spread the word just in case, but I don't think so. I hope not. So we will just keep people posted. We're working with all the vendors to see when we can work with them all and the venue to get a date that's open and not on top of somebody else's event. That's the key thing. This is fundraiser season from January. Oh, wait till December. Yeah. Anyway, so we want to make sure we're not on top of anybody else's event for all kinds of benefits. But we'll keep you guys posted on that part of it. We'll be putting messages out probably Friday and Monday that we are planning to attend the Sportsman Show in February in Portland and the one in March in Redmond, and we're looking for vendors to be in our booth with us so that we can have the Dalles represented. We pay for the booth and we'll pay for your entry to get in, and then that person can actually sell their products if they're from the Dalles, or at least what. So Tom Wood with Wood's Family Spirits and River Tap is, as most of us know him, they have produced a vodka and a bourbon. And so he will, last year he tried it out and they'll do samples and then they can sell the sealed bottle for later consumption. They can't sell it to drink at the facility because someone has that contract, but they can do samples and sell the alcohol and send it home with you. And in the short time that they were in Redmond, they sold out of what they brought. So it was great to put that product in the hands of people, both retail and wholesale. And so Tom is planning to be at the Portland and the Redmond one this time for the entire Sportsman Show, not just 1 or 2 days. He was like, we've got potential. So they're going to be in there in the booth with us. And then we've reached out to like Crumb Farming and they can bring their samples of pepperonis and sausage. We've had Freebridge in there before doing beer samples with their canned product for sale. We've brought in Sandoz Farms. So all kinds of creativity that we do in that booth to give exposure to businesses that are here in the Dalles. So if you can think of one, let us know and we'll reach out and see or talk to them and see if they want to. They don't have to be there the whole time. They can come and try one day and see what that might do to at least get themselves some exposure. I could see us selling the kits, the garland kits, the do-it-yourself kits that Lindsay has at the workshop. They've got Bigfoot in them. I could see those working at this kind of a show, but also food and different things like that. So I can tell you right now, it's not a place to come and try to get insurance clients. No. This is tourism and adventure and outdoor gearing. So we'll be looking at skookums and those and trying to invite them to see if they want to do a day up there. But that's what we do, and making sure that the Dalles gets some exposure a different way and not just advertising and radio and stuff like that. So we'll be doing that in February and again in March. So we're constantly trying to find a new angle and stay within our budget. So yes, but yeah, let's see. I don't think there's anything else going on right now with the chamber other than we're doing all kinds of things behind the scene right now. This is get ready and contracts and budgets and all of those aspects. And then we'll be putting out in probably a month a reminder if you wanted to nominate anybody for the board of directors, as we will have positions to fill that will take effect on July 1 for our new fiscal year. I think that's all from the chamber. Other than
Would
we're just,
anybody, would anybody like a physics explanation for why we're getting an Arctic blast?
it's called winter.
Yeah.
I'll preface that one, Phil, and maybe it'll set you up. Our temperature range up here, yesterday, 9 degrees in the morning, 37 degrees in the late afternoon. Now we're back down to 20.
I would have
Mm.
taken the 37, but yeah.
We had some negatives here the night before.
Yeah, we had three below the day before.
Now, I
Yeah.
was up on Tuesday, I was skiing on Mount Hood. It was a balmy 19 degrees and it's clear skies. So it's classic inversion where we got to call it. So let me do this, see if I can explain this in 4 minutes, maybe 3. Okay. So think of the Earth here. You're looking at the North Pole at the top, equator in the middle. Warm air rises at the equator, cold air sinks at the North Pole, and simplified, it makes a convection current that goes from north to south. So think about this. North Pole, you've got air sinking because it's cold, cold, cold. Right now, it's really cold because they haven't seen sunlight for 2 months and they won't see sunlight for another month at the North Pole. So it's super cold air sinking. And as you know, when you open your refrigerator, you open your door, cold air sinks and it spreads out along the floor. Your feet get blasted. So that same thing's happening at the North Pole. That cold air wants to sink and spread out on the land, out over Canada, out over Siberia. That's the way it wants to go. It rises at the equator, sinks at the North Pole, and then spreads out across the surface of the northern and southern hemispheres until it warms up at the equator and goes back around. And so the issue then is what's stopping that from happening all the time? Why aren't we getting this cold Arctic air, all winter long instead of just as these blasts that we're hitting right now? It would take me another 3 minutes, but there are 2 jet streams. One that we're familiar with that sometimes brings us rain from Hawaii in the Pacific. That one runs around 30 degrees north latitude, so it can go across the Pacific. It hits around California, goes across that way. Sometimes it slants north and brings a rain system to us. But there's another jet stream that goes up around 60 degrees north. So this is just below the Arctic Circle. It also goes in the same direction from west to east, and that rings around the whole Arctic. And as that cold Arctic air is coming down, that jet stream diverts it off to the east. It kind of corrals it and keeps the surges from falling down south, keeps them kind of trapped up there at the north. Now, what's happening is that jet stream is weakening because it's caused by the difference between how cold it is at the North Pole and how cold it is in Canada. And I've got my fingers here like this. This is Canada. This is the North Pole. This is the cold air at the North Pole is denser because it's cold. The cold air in Canada is not quite so dense. So it takes more warm air to balance the same weight as the cold air. So this cold air on top here in Canada flows over into the north air because it's less dense. And so at that high elevation, it flows over there. That's what starts that jet stream. Now, the problem is at the North Pole, it's warming up. The Arctic Ocean is getting warmer. So now the North Pole is getting warmer than it used to be. So the jet stream is weaker than it used to be. This is a connection to climate change. It's actually this, our Arctic blast that we're getting right now was predicted back in August. And it's based on changes that were happening in our oceans, in our climate. I could go over that again, but it'd take another 4 minutes.
And Phil, I've read that the United States is more in the target of those than Europe. Is there anything to that?
Yes, is that going back to that cold air sinking down, it's sinking down and running across the surface at surface level. So those surface flows are affected by mountain ranges. In North America, there's east of the Rocky, it's flat, flat, flat. And so there aren't any, so that's why the plains really get hit and the surge goes all the way down as far as Texas. In Europe, they've got some protection from the mountains in Sweden and Norway, where that's giving them some protection, diverting the Siberia again is like the central US in that they don't have any east-west mountain ranges to protect them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
Thanks for letting me be teacher for a moment again. Thanks.
No worries. So I say that we've still got 12 minutes, but I say we just go and have an extra cup of coffee, me especially. And then, yeah, mine got cold sitting over here because, like I said, I'm in the cold room. And you guys be safe, but most importantly, do check on our neighbors and friends and the elderly and just make sure that they're okay. I know that I always am cautious with this. My parents are in their 80s, and so it's like I always check in on them, even though they're in Georgia, but they went from, I think, 2 degrees to 30 degrees back down to 4. It does that. She goes, that's just winter. It just does weird stuff. So I'm always checking in on them and seeing what's going on, make sure they're okay and they got food. So do that for some neighbors that you have here. And then everybody take care. We'll be on next week. I'll send out in the e-blast on Monday who our speaker is. And so you guys will have that information ahead of time. And like I said, David already gave me a suggestion for a speaker, so I put that in my email already and sent it to myself. If you can think of a speaker that we might need to reach out to, let me know. I know we reached out to about 50 the other day and gave them the opportunity to sign up for 2024. So we'll continue to look for more and get speakers lined up for us and keep you guys posted. But with that, everybody take care. Go put on warm clothes, more socks, boots, everything. And if you don't have to go anywhere, don't. It's not worth it. So anyway, you guys take care and have a great one.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bud?